Okay, so let's talk about the black keys. These can be a little odd the way these are set up. Now remember, I didn't set these up. This is just the way this has been done for centuries and centuries. So this is what we call the black keys, and this is the system we use to identify the black keys. It's kind of strange. I'm just going to warn you. But after some practice, you get used to it pretty fast. Okay, so let's focus in right here. We know this is C, right? And we know this is D, okay? So D comes right after C, right? If you count up the alphabet, A, B, C, D, right? There's nothing in between. There's no letter in between. So we have a note in between, right? So what do we call this thing? There's got to be something that we call that. So here's the answer. We call this a C sharp. And we use this symbol, the number sign or the hashtag symbol is the kind of modern thing we would call it. But in music terms, we call that sharp. We call that symbol sharp. So sharp gets attached to a note when it's a little bit higher. So think of sharp as meaning a little bit higher. So in this case, this note, we would call it C sharp because what we're calling it is C a little bit higher than C. So C sharp. Sharp means just a hair higher than C. All right? Now here's where things get confusing. Well, actually, hold off on that for a second. Let's lock in this sharp idea. So what would we call this note? Okay? It is D a little bit higher. So we would call it D sharp. Okay? What about this one? What about this one? This is, well, what is this note? This is C, D, E, F. So this is an F. So this note is going to be F sharp. This note is going to be G sharp because that's G and it's a little bit higher. This is A, so this is A sharp. So A a little bit higher. What happens right here? What if we went B? This is a B. So what if we went B a little bit higher? There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a B sharp because B a little bit higher is C. So we don't use B sharps. Now I'm going to put one little thing in here that when you get into really advanced music theory, you do encounter a B sharp. So just file that away, but you probably will never see it. Maybe if you get into really advanced music theory. But for the purposes of us, a B sharp does not exist. Same thing right here. What note is this? Let's go down an octave. Here's an E. These are both E's. E, a little bit higher, turns into F. There's nothing in between. So there's no such thing as E sharp. So E sharp and B sharp do not exist. Okay? So we know how sharps work, right? Now, here's the somewhat confusing part. We have another symbol. We have this symbol that means flat. Okay? Flat means a little bit lower. So sharp means a little bit higher, and flat means a little bit lower, right? Easy enough. However, what that means is if we go back to this note, we know that we can call this a C sharp because it's C a little bit higher. But we can also call it a D flat. So all black notes could have two names. All black notes do have two names. I'm sorry. All black notes have two names. We can call this note C sharp or we can call it D flat. And when it comes to the piano, you're going to put your finger on the exact same spot. If the note says to play a C sharp or it says to play a D flat, it's that. It's the same thing. So all black notes have two possible names. Let's look at a couple other flats. What about this one? We can call this one E flat or D sharp. That's D a little bit higher, sharp, or E a little bit lower, flat. What about this one? We can call this one F sharp because it's F a little bit higher, or we can call it G flat, G a little bit lower, right? So that's how the sharps and flats work. Let's go to C. Can we have a C flat? No, we can't. For the same reason we don't have a B sharp. There's nothing in between. There's nothing here. There's not a black key here. So there's no C flat and there's no B sharp. And again, here, there's no F flat or E sharp. This is F. So F flat would be a black note here, and there isn't one. So that's how sharps and flats work. Now, collectively, we call those symbols accidentals. They're called accidentals. So a flat and a sharp is called an accidental. So when there is an accidental on a note, that means that there is either a flat or a sharp on it. That's just the term we use for both of those two symbols. Okay, so that's how we read the black keys. Now, why is there two names? Why would they do that to us? There's a good reason for it, and it has to do with keys. So if you're in a certain key, you might want to use flats. And if you're in another key, you might want to use sharps. It depends on how the key is set up. And we're going to talk a lot more about that later. In fact, that's going to be the majority of what we talk about when we talk about music theory, is how notes relate to keys and when you would want to use flats and sharps. So for now, just remember that these can have two names. And you'll see how this works a little bit better when we start connecting the piano keyboard to the notation on the screen. So just hold on to that for just a minute.